I'm Anna.
I'm Ben.
AutoSave, welcome to our channel.
Today we're watching the Apothecary Diaries Season 2, Episode 23. I have a question for you, Anna. Do you think that we're going to see a father-daughter reunion between Lacan and Mao Mao this episode? Or do you think that we're going to see Mao Mao taking care of the rest as per Shisui?
Oh, wow. Okay. So I don't think I would see a reunion between the two of them. I know how it would go, but I don't think I will. If anything, I could see more father-daughter with Laolin and Shisho possibly in this episode.
Okay.
Depending on what responsibility he's going to take.
I like that. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Sweet.
I have a nervous tummy.
You often have a nervous tummy.
This is one of those binge-worthy series where it's like, how could you not just want to continue and click next episode, especially at this kind of like ending part of season 2?
Yeah. In a weird way, season 2 feels like the second half of season 1, like in terms of storyline and story progression.
Doors that were opened in season 1 are possibly coming to a close here.
Yeah.
Don't get emotional yet, Anna. Don't do it.
Dog whistle? Wow. God, I love his armor. Holy shit! Oh my god! Oh, Dawson.
What is...
随分と悠長な物言いだな、師匠。主上の勅命だ。横領、反逆の罪で拘束する。
金軍が来ているの、勅命が下っているのは分かっていますよ。
Oh, shit. Oh!
情けないな。お前とて戯れで獣を売っていたではないか。早く人で試したいとうずうずしていたのに。残念だな。
俺は言ってない。火種もないのに。実際に襲われたからな。
あれは惜しかった。あなたき仕留めていれば惜しいことをした。これで終わりか。もう少し時間があればな。いや、あっても変わらぬか。
なんだ、まるで用意されたセリフを読んで。
Yeah. Before she changed. Yeah. Where's the hair stick?
こちらです。水霊姉様、もうひどいことはされていませんか？
遺憾をそそのかし、死体になりすまして逃亡。そして宦官を装って戻ってきた。
But she's sweet phrasing it immediately as she stopped abusing you.
ずっと憎んでいたのでしょ？この姿によく似たお方を。自分よりずっと美しいことに嫉妬していたのでしょう。
Hated him because of who he looked like.
自分よりずっと幼い事情を選んだからですか？少し冗談が過ぎましたね。さて、お母様の本望を遂げる前に 一つ余興をいたしましょうか。30年以上も前の話です。女帝はいつまでも女に興味を見せぬ息子にしびれを切らし、高級にどんどん美女を送り込みました。そしてある時、
シェンメイ、高級に入るって。
Oh.
上級妃としてぜひにと。
君はいずれ私と。
わからない？これは好機なのよ。
How eager to it.
皇后の座も夢ではないわ。
For her.
こんな北の地の領主の妻で終わってたまるものですか。
シェンメイ、
息子の上級妃として取り立てたい。
私は上級妃として壊れて。
お母様はそのつもりだったのですね。病の床に伏せていたおじい様が呪詛のように漏らしていましたよ。娘を人質に取られては何もできぬと。交換の娘を妃と称して人質に取ることはよくあることでしょう。
Oh my god.
お母様のことを一度は諦めました。人士様、高級がこれだけ大きくなった理由をご存知ですか？
師匠が女帝をそそのかしたと話に聞く。
ええ、新しい公共事業として高級の拡大を提言したそうです。奴隷交易に代わる。
奴隷交易。
お母様は本当に何も知らないようですね。しかし他国に売られた奴隷はその限りではありません。だからこそ女帝は奴隷交易を禁じたのです。娘を人質に取られた死の一族は家業であった奴隷交易を縮小せざるを得ませんでした。
残った奴隷たちの行く先として高級を利用してはいかがですか。若い娘は下女や女官に、男は宦官として入れるのです。
Wow.
高級拡大は女に興味を持たぬ主情のためになるといえば、女帝も耳を貸すでしょう。
確かに娘を売った家族も他国に売られるより高級に預けられる方が
I mean, that is. Wow.
ええ、誰にとっても益になる話かと。
お父様は女帝の信頼を得ることにより死の一族の信用と人質のお母様を取り戻そうとしたのです。こんなになるくらいならあの時逃げ出していればよかったのに。
師匠、一体どういう。
He
The same
came for
passage.
her. He built the song.
私と逃げないか。君が望むなら一緒に逃げよう。
高級からの逃走は重罪よ。
抜け道を作った時点で重罪だ。私は君を諦められなかった。君以外を妻に迎えることもできずに、また会いたいとここまで。
いいの？私で。
もちろんだ。さあ。
あの方が次女の逮捕に先を越された上級妃。
アンシ様より先に受断したのにね。
ふざけないで。この私に恥をかいたまま逃げろというの？
違う。
帰れ。
自分の地位を捨てて逃げようという男は信用できませんでしたか？
父様が倒れてすぐに家督を継ぎ、この女の母親などめとった男を。
姉様、失礼します。
それは法王のかんざし。
ええ、お母様もご存知でしょ。これを身につけられる者はキリンの一生と同じく皇帝の血を引く者。
嘘よ。先帝は認めていなかったはず。
高級から追い出した赤子のことが心配で、たびたびお父様の手引きで顔を出していたそうですよ。
Valen's such an interesting character, man.
自分の娘だと理解していた。
私の娘を妻として迎えてほしい。
やがて二人の間には子が生まれました。
死水と名付けました。
死水、死の一族にふさわしい名だ。
主上、私の望みを叶えてくださると。でしたら上級妃のシェンメイを可視していただけませんか。
もう人質を取る必要はないと。こうしてお母様は可視されたのですよ。
All the lengths he went through to get her back, the hostage situation.
嘘よ、嘘よ、嘘よ。でたらめを言わないで。
ずっとお父様はお母様のためにやってきたのに、破滅しかない最後だと分かっていたのに。お父様の最後はいかがでしたか？
あの男は自分の権力が欲しかっただけ。私をめとったのも当主としての座を誇示したかったからよ。
でも結局一族内でお父様よりも幅を利かせていたのはお母様でしょ。お母様に媚びを売る一族の者たちが宮中で何をしていたかご存知でしたか？ええ、彼らは賄賂や横領を繰り返し、苦言を呈するまともな者は追い出され、残るは海ばかり。お父様は自ら国賊を演じることで死の一族の海もろと破滅するつもりだったのです。人士様、お父様はタヌキと呼ばれていましたけど、タヌキって本当は臆病な生き物。
The perspective shot of the sweat droplet,
Very
slightly out
timid
of frame.
creatures.
師匠は国の腐敗を一手に集める必要悪を演じていた。報われないな。
ちゃんとお父様は敵役を演じきれましたか？
それが事実だという証拠はあるのか？
うまくいかなければそのまま国を取ってしまえばいいのです。それで傾く国ならいっそない方がいい。
お前はあの男と一緒にずっと私を騙していたのか？
私はお母様の言う通りにやってきただけです。還元を吐くアホばかりを囲って金軍に勝てると本当に思っていたのですか？
ほら、へい！そのためにこれを作らせたのではないか。
お母様の手には余ります。返してください。
うるさ
It's
い。
like, what if it's like not even.
何がおかしい？
だってお母様まるで小物なんで
You're
すもん。
so insignificant.
銃声。馬仙様。
私は悪い娘ですね。お父様の意図を組んだらこんな真似できるわけない。
中に詰め物をしていたのか？
新型は構造が複雑なんです。人士様はあの時奪おうとは思わなかったのですか？隙を見ればいくらでも奪えたでしょうに。
Bang.
伝えたいことがあったのだろう。
顔だけのバカなら本当に良かったのに。お母様、お父様が死んだんですよ。涙の一つくらいこぼしてください。
There was no reaction.
持ち続けていたんですよ。
Nothing.
涙をこぼしてくれたら私だってこんなこと。
師匠は神明のために何でもしたが、同時に国のことも見捨てられない忠臣だった。
人士様、贅沢を言うようですが、2つ願いを聞いていただけますか？本当はそれをネタに命乞いするつもりだったんですけど、うまくいきませんでしたね。そこに書いてあるのは今後この国に起こりうることです。1つ目の願いです。一族でまともな思考の者は母に追放され名を捨てております。姉もまた同じようなものです。その者たちは一度死んだ者として
As they've already died once.
努力する。
では一度死んだ者は見逃してくださるのですね。ありがとうございます。私もお父様以上の役者になれるかしら。
止めればよかっただろうか。いや、できなかった。世紀の悪女の一世一代の舞台、壊すことなんてできない。目をそらすこともできなかった。
see the location of it?
無事です。
どこにいる？
あまり近づかない方が。死んだ死の一族の子供たちです。どうしてもと頼み込まれたら何も言えないでしょう。
随分ひどい姿だな。
あなた様もですよ。
俺の顔に傷がついたことで部下が罰を受けるのは分かっていた。それなのにローランの願いを受け入れてしまった。俺のことはいい。それにしても軍師殿がここにいなくて正解だったな。
全くです。
外で待ってろ。俺がいなければこんな目には。
何をやっているのでしょうか、人士様。
Okay, that was the Apothecary Diaries, Season 2, Episode 23. I love Lao Lin. If there didn't need to be any more evidence or proof or showings of why she is a phenomenal character.
Mm-hmm.
Was a phenomenal character, but here we are.
Yep, I agree with that. The performance, the acting of this episode, both on part of the father and the daughter. Amazing.
It's amazing, and I think that like it's what we've been saying in terms of how brilliant the writing is and how it's all interconnected with each other. I think that at a certain point, maybe when we got to the Fox Village, there's so much under what Lao Lin or Shisui's character is and acting is, and at that point I was like, okay, so maybe I see her as a character who has been putting on this front, and as even Lao Lin, but having the Shisui character to be able to have a little bit of her true personality show, and maybe and that's all that there is to it. But god damn it, how much was in her head all along, how smart she has been all along, how she has known when to talk and when not to talk all along to get her to this point, to show how intelligent of a character she has been all along is absolutely magnificent.
You have all of those years of being silent but hearing so many things, piecing together so many things, seeing things happen to the people around you. That's a lot of time to sit with yourself and probably feel like you know yourself a great deal, and also to come up with ideas of who you want to be and what you would want to do. Like the idea of, what if I were to run away and do this? The fantasizing about the what ifs. That's a lot of time to sit with yourself and wonder, well, what kind of person would I want to be in my final moments, going out in a blaze of glory? What sort of end would I want? What sort of position would I want to be in this orchestrated play that my parents have laid out for us?
I think that a more normal person or a lesser person would have been completely focused on the internal of it, and like the pain that you're being made to go through by your mother and by your parents, and seeing Suri, someone that you love, your sibling, getting tortured and beaten, abused. And while those feelings did happen and those things did exist, Lao Lin prevailed as almost a genius, like somebody on a different level of intellect, because at that point Lao Lin is not only able to be within that world and see those things, Lao Lin is able to see the world and the country as a bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, would offer her own, like her original plan, right? Being able to offer these ideas of what might come in the future as a bargaining chip for her life. I think that a lesser character, I wouldn't believe that offering and what was written down would have been enough as a chip to even come close to bargaining for a life like Lao Lin's of the Shi clan. But because of how Lao Lin shows her intelligence to be and comes off, I believe that when Jinshi reads it, it's logical. It makes sense. It's things that people probably wouldn't have thought of. I would almost want Lacan's reading of that note to just give more justification and validation to how intelligent Lao Lin is.
She's this device to show us, especially in this episode, she really completely breaks out of that idea of what she had been having to live as her whole life as a puppet. When you have an idea so grand and so dangerous as basically a coup against of the nation, you're going against the emperor. When you have something so grand, people are going to have, while they might have the same goal, they might not have the same path of getting there, and they might have different priorities or reasons why they are agreeing with said goal. And I feel like she facilitates that for us, both through highlighting what it was for Shisho, of why he walked down the same path as Shenmei and why she herself is walking down the same path, but she even highlights why and where she diverts slightly from her father's, with basically her treatment of her mother at the end being how she has diverted from the plan. But I think that she's being utilized as this device to truly highlight this kind of spectrum of going all the way from, we get told she's a puppet, we see her living as this puppet, all the way to like full autonomy. I'm doing this goal or I'm walking down this path, but I have my priorities straight of who it is that I'm protecting.
You know what's so interesting? Like, hear me out here. Like, Lao Lin Shisui almost reminds me of like a game master. Like, it's like she has 3 or 4 different iterations of how the future will go that she'd be okay with. And while she might have some preferences here and there or ideas of what might happen, those 4 things are 99% of the time guaranteed to happen. And then she just hits play and watches it play out as it does. I think that, like, from the situation of her putting the FIFA in Jinshi's face and saying bang, at that point, Lao Lin has already hit play. If Jinshi ends up being like, I don't want to do anything but just hype and like love on Lao Lin's character this episode, but I have to do it for Jinshi, because Jinshi, I think, is almost like a hidden star, even though that he's like the face of, like he's the Moon Prince. But I think that him and his personality and his emotional intellect and his ability to be able to react in real time in such an empathetic, real way is absolutely profound.
With also critical thinking, not just empathetic, but the critical thinking.
And I think that right from that bang interaction, if Jinshi showed himself to be exactly what the previous emperor was and took that FIFA, because Lao Lin pointed it out, you could do this, you can do this, and didn't act as emotionally intelligent and rational as he did and heard Lao Lin out, it would prove to Lao Lin that he would have deserved to be killed right then and there. And he would have been killed right then and there from the shrapnel. Yeah. He would have taken that gun, tried to fire it at Lao Lin, and it would have backfired, like later on Shenmei does to herself, which only I think is another piece that Lao Lin had put out there. Like, okay, I'm setting up the situation in exactly the way that I want it to be. Prove me right or wrong, and this is what the payoff is going to be, right or wrong. And Jinshi, in doing so, later in the episode, around like 1648, oh, if only you were just an idiot with a pretty face. Like, he isn't though. And if only he was an idiot with a pretty face, he would have taken that FIFA and killed himself, right? But he wasn't. And in every way, I think Lao Lin is seeing Jinshi prove to be an incredible character, an incredible individual.
I think that how Jinshi's actions here, he was literally following the script that she hoped to be followed. If we're going with the idea of acting and the stage, she had the stage set. Her hope was that the actor beside her would improv following her lead and follow the same steps she was hoping they would, which was read. Obviously it was a trick that the FIFO was blocked. It wasn't actually, she couldn't have actually shot him when he stuck his head, through the hole to the secret passageway. But that's a trick to kind of get someone to think, oh, you don't actually want to kill me, you genuinely want to say something to me, so I'm going to hear you out, which would trick someone then into following you, even though we know now that the gun was blocked and it would have just hurt Laolin.
Well, it's a trap to an idiot. Like, right? It's not only because Laolin can't guarantee that Jinshi is the type of person to not take the FIFA. An idiot would have done it. The previous emperor would have taken it there. It was a trap for someone to take the gun, but Jinshi then proved that he is not an idiot with a pretty face.
But like it's past the idea of like not, obviously that's one element, is not grabbing it. The fact that he starts his reasoning of why he didn't grab it and why he followed and why he believed in that moment she wasn't gonna shoot him when he stuck his head through the passageway is because she had something to say to him. There is this kind of trust there that while there was a slight trick element, or she had other kind of ideas in place of, well, if he does this, then this, and if he does that, then that, but this still ended up being the most ideal way for this to play out for Laolin. And I think obviously that's why she's probably so amused by the end of it, because this really played out in, as she's foreseeing it, one of the positive outcomes, one of the ways where she could get closest to having some of her priorities at the end of the day for this goal possibly happen.
Yeah.
These promises that she would hope that Jinshi, after her death, might deliver.
If only you had a tear to shed for him, I wouldn't have had to do any of this. Like, Shenmei's lack of reaction to the implication and, oh, how did father die? Laughing. There was nothing there. And it just is another point to prove that Laolin's pieces and moving them where they needed to be for this plan to be enacted is justified in its own way. It shows... It proves points that she doesn't necessarily even want proven, right? But she just knows will happen.
Yeah, she was leaving a spot in this situation for her mom to kind of redeem herself slightly to Laolin as the daughter, of Shisho and Shenmei. She was giving her mother just like one little spotlight moment to show her something, even if it can't erase all that has been done. Just like one little tear that you could have shed for him.
It's really interesting in terms of what a character Shenmei ended up being, because in Shisho's character, like, a lot of characters in the Apothecary Diaries, you can see like wrongdoings, right? But like the motivation of doing something right, even if it's wrong, and it coming from a place of like love, right? If Shisho is doing all of this out of love and a hope that is a lost cause, there's still like a genuine nature there. But in terms of Shenmei, it just feels like she's just a shallow person in that way. Like, I get it to the point of like reaching, like, oh my god, Shisho built the passage, Anna. He built the fucking passage and showed up to her window, and she was reaching out. She was reaching out and then heard all the voices and let that take her over. But fuck, it's like, I'm glad that she died here.
It was such a huge surprise to me that Shisho had done something so big and so dangerous of his own accord, not to do with Shenmei telling him what to do or anything, with the fact that he built the secret path and literally was like, run away with me. That in itself came as a pretty big surprise, because I feel like I was starting to paint him, even especially kind of capping it off with last episode, as more of a submissive to Shenmei's kind of desires. Like, he was just along for the ride. The emperor told him to do this. He did it. He never really took action or stood on his own 2 feet. He kind of just did what other people told him to do. That's the picture that I was having be painted of him in my mind. And to see that that man only came after putting his heart on the line, and his body on the line, his whole life on the line, ditch title, ditch everything for not only love. So it's love, but obviously saving her. It just in a literal sense of she's in a hostage situation, a political hostage, if you will, and also love.
She doesn't see it that way.
She doesn't see it that way. Well, she like obviously a man's coming to your window and she's probably feeling undesired, obviously, at this point, which I feel like maybe her feeling undesired by the Emperor is where the kind of little bit of like excitement about someone wanting to be with her this much comes from, but it's obviously not enough, and there's not actual like love there for her to be like, yes. She'd much rather the status.
Well, her narrative of like they were practically begging for me, right? Even though it wasn't.
Yeah, like in her mind, she was never this political hostage.
Mm-hmm.
She was offered this like position of high-ranking concubine. They wanted her for her beauty, her status. This was great for her family. This was great for her. She could become the Empress Dowager. And she was so ready to leave behind this like fiance that she had that didn't really have, he was brought into the She clan, you know, he didn't have a foundation to stand on really, and nowhere close to the Emperor. And in this moment, for a second, when we get her reacting to him in the window, where it seems like she's so elated and, oh my gosh, that you would do this for me, it's really, she's being fed by the fact that someone would do this for her, not by love for the man in front of her that's doing it for her. It's just the idea that someone would go through such lengths for her that is exciting for her, seemingly, in this moment.
I just think it's sad in the sense that like Shisho is all about the we of it. Everything in his mind and his intention is about us. We can live, that like our happiness. And the first thing that Shenmei says is like, leaving the rear palace is a serious crime. What's the implication there? That has nothing to do with we. That is all about her and the crime she'd be committing. And Shisho responds with, well, digging the passage in the first place is
I already committed a crime.
Yeah. And
I did my crime, now you do your crime.
At that point, you can already see like the difference in perspective and the difference in feelings between the two, as heartbreaking as it is, and ends up being going forward. Mm-hmm. Damn. Well, I thought one of the highlights of the episode for me was Jinshi's viewing of Suri. I'm paraphrasing here, but it was something like, I thought this was going to be a bold and daring woman. And then when you see Suri and see all of the implications of why she did what she did and why she had to work so hard to do those things.
entrance into this secret room being like, are you done abusing her yet? Laulin's actions, everything she said in this major scene in this episode, basically what this episode was, were all so well thought out. The fact that she enters the scene saying something like that, you don't just say that unless you're trying to plant it in the mind of the person that's following behind you into the room, to set the stage of, this is the relationship and dynamic between these two characters of the room that you're walking into. That's exactly what she's doing. And what else she's completely masterminding is that she's literally giving the whole down low, the whole explanation of what the crimes are and how deep it goes for the She clan, specifically for Shenmei, Shisho, and Laolin, how much has gone on and what they have actually been doing. No mention of Suri in any of this other than just plain being factual. This is Suri's lineage.
Yeah.
She does not include Suri in anything else she says other than being like, oh, look at this hair stick. This is her lineage. Okay, now about me and my parents.
And the implication of the first wish, though. I brought up the lines. My first wish is this.
That was another point in the same, conversation.
Clan members who can think rationally have all been ousted. Think rationally. Think about the fucking specific terms Laolin is saying. Think rationally have all been ousted by my mother and lost their names. Like a complete separation there in Jinshi's favor, right? Like how he would benefit from this situation. My sister's situation is similar. As they have already died once, would you consider sparing them? I'll do what I can. And again, it's not just that. It's Laolin's specific word choice after and before the fact too, right? It's like she's getting it written in blood almost in terms of a contract to make sure that both parties are understanding what she specifically is saying. So you'll let those who've died once go. That is such specific wording. And it tries to paint a life for Suri, getting out of this, going forward past of everything that happened to her. However, out of the two of us, who do you feel like is more of the one to cope? Like within death and like, where are you at in terms of like letting what you saw be reality or trying to think positively about like a fictional future?
Oh, I don't think I'm coping. I think that there is evidence.
So what we're alluding to, would you say that this is evidence applying to it as well?
I would say
So you'll let those who've died once go?
Mm-hmm. I would say if you take So You'll Let Those Who've Died Once Go and The Last I Ever Saw Laolin as a line, and then where the Feifa hit her, and we know what was there. A very good kind of metal hair stick, a very well-made metal hair stick for Mao Mao.
I think that would be more metaphoric. I think that it would have to be something more than the hair stick, but I of course wouldn't put that past Lao Lin because of who she is. I think it would be symbolic in that sense, and I do think it was the thing found in the bushes, but if we're being logical about, okay, obviously what we're getting at is potentially Laolin faking her death here and then going off and living a life because she's already died and has moved on, correct? Mm-hmm. But like, if we're like, Occam's razor here, if we think that Laolin has the hair stick and then her body is fallen to never be seen again, but then the hair stick is found along not with her body, the implication there is that her body is somewhere else, i.e. she has survived and moved on.
If she was dead, I would believe you would have seen the body on top of the bushes or something. Honestly, she's falling in a bunch of snow. I've seen characters in shows and anime, if you fall into a bunch of snow, it definitely can save you a little bit from a great height if it's a certain depth of snow. So that's a point in her favor here. Obviously a really beautiful scene if you're
very
going to actually kill a character.
It's reminiscent of Mao Mao's dance at the end of season 1. And it's beautiful, and what has led to this happening in the way that it does is her second favor, which is scarring Jinshi, right? Because in doing so, you are solidifying your death, but you're solidifying your death under so many different circumstances, because you're trusting that Jinshi will let you do this. And how much what does it mean to have that trust? Because you're not trusting that, like, oh, shallow, I'm gonna let, this girl scratch me on my face. No, it's way more loaded than that, as we see, as what's played out with Basen. Jinshi is choosing to let one of his people get punished for letting Jinshi get scarred so that Laolin can go out in the way that she does.
Mm-hmm. There's an honoring there. Yeah, so it's like, where does Laolin possibly get the hope or desire that Jinshi will let things play out in the way that she's hoping, where he would be one that would follow her to hear the story, where he would be one to accept this second favor that she asks for of scarring her face, where he would let her do her dance and not even raise his sword or a gun at her, and it not be until his men enter and Basen enters that they begin shooting at her.
The second that he doesn't reach for the Feifa, that's when. Mm-hmm. To answer the question, that is when, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The final performance of a once-in-a-generation evil. There was no way I could ruin it, nor could I avert my gaze from it. And I'm letting this play out so we can actually see the body, because we've seen blood, right? We've seen blood a lot this episode.
And we see blood rush down her arm, because I believe maybe one of the bullets had grazed her arm or something.
What we don't see when she's hit in the chest is blood.
Yeah.
It could be anything, but I wouldn't think the hairpin's enough, but I think that she would put something in between her chest and her clothing, if we're entertaining the idea that she was able to survive. Would she be the
type that would wear some sort of, like, obviously they didn't have, like, bulletproof vests.
Yes.
But is she the type who would have put something underneath her garment purposefully herself in order to, if she knew that this was how it's going to play out, she set the stage. She knew where she wanted to dance. She was like, she took her mom into this passageway, into this secret room.
Yeah, and I'm like, how I was saying in the beginning, like, she has 4 different options that could play out that she'd be fine with. Obviously, she has preferences, right? The option that Jinshi is shallower than he is and stupider than he is and takes the Fifa and kills himself, that's an option. That's not necessarily her ideal option, but it's one that she'd be okay with. In that preparation of those 4 options, one of them would lead to her getting shot there, so she's going to preemptively put something there, even if that never happens. The one thing I'll say, though, is I don't think we'll ever know. I think that we're going to be like, okay, yep, it's the hair stick, and it's going to suggest that she survived, but I don't think we'd ever see it. I don't think we'd ever see her again.
I think the hair stick would make it back to Mao Mao because of what Lao Lin tells us episodes ago when she first sees it, which is if someone were to see this with a specific eye, they'd be able to tell who it belongs to. And I think with that line, we could see the hair stick coming back to Mao Mao somehow. And I think that would honestly be lovely for Mao Mao to not know for sure because of the idea of conjecture and the idea that she can I'll just think maybe in my mind for a second, the what if, but not going to speak on conjecture. I'm not going to go tell someone I think Lao Lin's still alive. You kind of let that lie even when you're speculating about it.
Jinshi agreed because Lao Lin doubled down and said, if those have died, you'll let be. Like, Lao Lin's allowed to live by the agreement, right?
Everyone there probably thinks she's dead that witnessed this. That's a lot of testament.
So do you think Jinshi had, when he says, like, I'm imagining we're saying this from the future tense of, like, Jinshi saying that he's never seen Lao Lin again, right?
Like in some sort of narration way? Like
yeah. And if that's...
she says it?
Yes, and if that's the case, would you put any implication that Jinshi has entertained the idea that she is alive somewhere?
I would think that he would entertain it because wouldn't they want to get her body? I feel like if you have eliminated someone that has done something this big that you have orders from the Emperor, I doubt you're going to let their body just sit in a bush outside of the stronghold. I highly doubt that. I feel like there would be needing to have some sort of either claiming of her body after it falls off the stronghold and or some cover up of why we didn't or we did but no one else really saw it, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I would say my last comment about this display is this is the last thing that Lao Lin can do for Suri.
Yep.
For her future.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't necessarily Jinshi that needs to believe that Lao Lin is dead here and that Lao Lin has died and this is the last they've ever seen Lao Lin. For Suri's future to be able to have even a fighting chance of being like, I am not a part of the Shi clan. My name was stripped away from me. I can now re-enter the palace in my rightful position. She needs to completely eliminate that last connection of Shenmei, Shisho, Lao Lin from Suri to be able to give Suri that chance. So I don't believe Lao Lin would ever come back into the story, in my personal opinion now, if I'm thinking
like
about
she's
it
not,
from Suri's
unfortunately, she's not going to be Shisui again at the real palace.
Right.
Yeah.
Because if I think about what she wanted here and her choices, and obviously how believing the look on Suri's face, this whole scene, the crying, the reaching for her as she's falling off of the stronghold, that is not a performance. And you kind of want the curtains to fall there, especially if we know from her conversation with Mao Mao, Lao Lin's conversation with Mao Mao in the room with the children. Mao Mao noted that Lao Lin was doing everything she could in that moment, and then from the moments we've seen, to separate Suri, to like kind of let go of Suri so that she could have a chance.
Yeah.
And I think that it's going to end up being Jinshi and Mao Mao might have some speculation, some wonderings to themselves of what is she up to. And I think Suri is going to be either left in the dark or might have some of her own as well, but would never fully know for sure, at least not in the coming years.
I think last episode when Lao Lin said, I have my own pride, that was shown tenfold here. And I also think that she, to answer her question, I think she was the better actor out of her and her father.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, honestly, Shisho really surprised me with this episode. When Laolin had told him to take responsibility last episode, I thought it was take responsibility for your own inaction, but really how much he actually did orchestrate of this and how complex some of the things he orchestrated actually are. Super cool. But I think my last thing I'd probably want to say, because of thinking about like the future of this series, thinking about the future of these characters, Mao Mao and Jinshi returning to the palace, the evil has supposedly mostly been rooted out of the palace now. If there's no evil, no job for Mao Mao to root out evil herself. Obviously, I think that there would still be things to come in the future. Even if it's someone accidentally poisoning someone else with something that they don't realize is poison. But for the most part, Laolin's saying, like, hey, most of the evil has been taken care of with this kind of final display. So what does that mean for the future of these characters in returning to the palace? Are we returning to somewhat of a security for Jinshi to be who he wants to be who he is now kind of stepping into as the Moon Prince? And now we have a Crown Prince born, and hopefully the Crown Prince will be able to be raised safely, healthy, get past, his childhood and into his adulthood.
Good question. I think that there always is room for new evil to be brewing, obviously, but also
new reasons to resent the Rear Palace, the Emperor. There's always going to be reasons, right?
Yeah, and obviously the variation of the future that we're seeing is something we never even speculated about. And with Gyokyu's kid, Jinshi's life is something that I don't think he even knows what it's going to look like to the specific detail. I am more focused on the immediate, though. What's happening next episode, and what is Mao Mao's following of Laolin's last request going to look like?
Right. Oh, I'm excited for that. Okay, I have one last thing.
Okay.
I'm gonna be thinking of things as I leave this room. I think that it is really interesting that the reason that Laolin highlights for Shenmei's distaste or hatred toward Jinshi is because of who he resembles.
Yeah.
And not necessarily what he stands for or the nation itself and the fact that she was taken a hostage. It's who he resembles, and that being a direct callback to episodes ago where he finally kind of, one of the first steps of him kind of claiming who he really is and stepping into that is someone looking at him and being kind of terrified because he resembles someone.
And him learning that he does. Mm-hmm. And you're right. No, Shenmei's ignorance is why she couldn't see past the visual where Laolin could in that moment. And even though that everything was in front of her to be able to see the difference between Jinshi and the previous emperor, she, in her own delusional world, would have been unable to. And Laolin is the best ever. Yep. Love her.
Love her.
You good?
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please like, comment, subscribe. I hope to see you next time.